We're awaiting Gerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post Gazette. Got a blurb up this morning that I read on Russ Wilson becoming a Pittsburgh Steeler. This was largely rumored to be the fit. He flew out, Russ did, on Thursday or Friday, I believe he was spotted at the Newark airport, and he was headed to Pittsburgh. And so he announced himself, Mr. Unlimited is going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler, as it was reported by Adam Schefter this morning.
What's crazy? If you think about it, him signing in Steelers for the Steelers, it's a pay raise. Because he's going to make $37.8 no matter what from the Broncos.
Yeah, the Broncos are on the hook for it.
So he's going to add another extra 1.2.
Get that veteran man.
Just for funsies.
I believe
I'm getting a pay upgrade.
Yeah. I believe, do we have Gerry Dulac? Are we good? Jerry's on the horn? There we go. Gerry Dulac of Pittsburgh Post Gazette joining us this morning. Gerry, good morning. Thanks for hopping on with us. What was your reaction to the Steelers and Russell Wilson agreeing to partner up?
Well, obviously, I knew it was a great possibility based on the people who told me about it on Thursday. So I'm not completely surprised. I will tell you, though, my reaction is I think it's a good thing. I think it's an exciting thing. It will generate, if nothing else, a lot of excitement and interest, even more so heading to training camp. I mean, you're talking about a 9-time Pro Bowl quarterback who's won a Super Bowl, probably a future Hall of Famer. And so anytime you bring that type of person in, now, look, we'll see what he has left in the tank, but when you bring in that type of quarterback with that kind of resume, it lends a great deal of excitement. And it's a no-brainer, no risk for the Steelers. It costs them $1.2 million. It's a one-year deal. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And they're back to where they were. So now, might it chip away at Kenny Pickett's confidence a little or a lot? Yeah. But that's what we're going to find out.
Yeah, Gerry, we were talking about the Steelers earlier, and they've had an interesting run here. A couple seasons, no playoffs, losing in the wild card. I know everybody highlights Tomlin not being sub 500. Do you think Pittsburgh's a team to keep an eye on in the draft? Maybe not to jump up to the top of the draft, but to maybe eye that next quarterback, or is this just kind of a year-to-year thing for them, you think, based on what Russ is this season for Mike Tomlin?
Yeah, Russell Wilson or not, they weren't interested in a quarterback, not yet. They're willing to give Kenny Pickett a third year. Now, again, we'll see how that plays out with Russell Wilson here. I don't think they brought him in to lead the band at halftime, and I'm sure he didn't want to go. I'm sure he wanted to, and I was told he wanted to go somewhere where he, at the very least, had a chance to be a starter. So I have to believe that at the very least, that's what the Steelers told him he would be able to do. So, but no, they have some other areas they need to address, but a quarterback in the first round won't be one of them.
Gerry, is there any chance? I know you kind of just touched on that Russ wanted to sign somewhere where he knew he was going to start. Is there any chance Kenny can beat him out? And if so, what is Russell Wilson like as the backup quarterback, if possible, in Pittsburgh?
Yeah, well, I don't think there's any question he could beat him out. And, Mike Tomlin, look, we won't talk to Mike Tomlin until the NFL owners meetings at the end of the month. And typically what he does, he will not sit here and proclaim anybody to start, go with the status quo, which is, Kenny Pickett will go to training camp as a starter, and there will be a competition. But he won't get into anointing anybody the starter. But, yeah, I think the Steelers are going to find out, too, what Kenny Pickett is made of. Is he going to be a flower and wilt under the pressure and the acquisition of Russell Wilson, or is he going to be a fighter who stands up and battles for that position and takes the step that they are waiting for? So that's what they're going to find out about Kenny Pickett. So in that regard, again, I know, it's possible it could chip away at his confidence because, look, they wouldn't have made this move if they had complete faith in Kenny Pickett. They wouldn't have brought Russell Wilson in merely to be a backup. They would have signed Mason Rudolph, who saved their season last year. So there's a reason why they're bringing him in, and there's a reason why he signed here. But to answer your question, yeah, I think Kenny Pickett could beat him out. Do I expect that to happen? Probably not if I'm a betting man, but I wouldn't rule it out.
Gerry Dulac's our guest here, Pittsburgh Post Gazette, one of the longtime scribes in the National Football League, does a great job, a good friend of the show. He's been on a few times with us as Pittsburgh has signed Russell Wilson, veteran minimum contract. When you hear from Steeler fan, not that it's the end-all be-all there, Gerry, but when you hear from Steeler fan, what is a complaint that you hear the most about the current Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, the biggest one, of course, is that Mike Tomlin, as you referenced earlier, despite all those non-losing seasons, hasn't won a playoff game in 7 years. That's a franchise record, and that is the biggest one. 10-7 sounds nice. Another non-losing season, 9-8 2 years ago, 9-7-1. Nobody anymore. Nobody cares about that. All they care about is, can you win a playoff game and try to advance in the postseason? Something that the people here obviously are accustomed to. Mm-hmm. And it just hasn't happened in a while. They haven't been back to the Super Bowl since 2010, even though they had Ben Roethlisberger for all those years. And yeah, is the fan base spoiled? Of course they are. But that is the biggest complaint. And then, of course, this past year, the thing that the people wailed about the most was the offense under Matt Canada, and you saw that they moved on from him after 11 games last year, which is a rarity for them in that, to fire a coach mid-season, even a coordinator. So that's something they never do, and but it's something they felt they had to do.
Gerry, we've been kind of going back and forth on this the last couple of days about Russell Wilson potentially going there and Kenny Pickett, et cetera, et cetera. I always fear that Pittsburgh is dangerously mediocre and kind of continues to stay there, as you just mentioned, with no playoff wins in 7 years. What are the chances, say Russ doesn't work out, say Pickett doesn't work out either, could the fan base or even the organization stomach a full reset?
Well, that isn't in the team's DNA. And I will say this, they've been slowly kind of rebuilding, if not recharging, and the key, of course, is the quarterback. But their entire offense is back, and most of their they moved on they got rid of their starting center, so they'll draft a center high in April. But and most of their defense is back, but they need to make either a splash in free agency or find a kind of a stud in the draft. And if they can do that, they are a playoff team from last year. So, I'm not going to sit here and say they're that far away from the Super Bowl, but they're certainly in position to continue to get better and maybe head in the right direction. So I don't think, in the NFL, you're really never that far away, as we have seen in Denver, in Detroit, in Houston, and other places. So I think, but the key, of course, is going to be the quarterback. And if after year 3 they think Kenny Pickett's not the guy going forward, then they will make another move, whether in the draft or whatever, to find that guy.
Gerry, it's a long way away. To your point, like, you just don't know year to year what's going to happen, who's going to stay healthy, all of that stuff. But I would presume for a lot of people that watch football, Pittsburgh might go into the season where everybody looks at the AFC North and goes, yeah, probably Pittsburgh at the bottom there, right? Because Baltimore was awesome. Cincinnati's getting Burrow back. Obviously, they've been to a Super Bowl. Cleveland's defense was stellar. I don't know what Watson's going to be, but maybe Pittsburgh, Cleveland are interchangeable. You mentioned a splash. What is a splash in free agency to Gerry Dulac, who's been covering this team for a while? What does that look like to you? Like, is there a specific player, a position that you think that if they can lock down this spot, this increases the likelihood that maybe Russ and the Steelers can get back to the postseason and make a little bit more noise than they have in, say, what you mentioned the last 7 years?
Well, one thing I've understood about the Steelers in free agency all these years is they don't make that big name splash. They never have. But if you're asking me what I would do when you look at a position that needs to make a splash, it's been a revolving door at inside linebacker since Ryan Shazier's career-ending injury. So to me, if they could find that player and make a big-time inside linebacker, I would make that move, and to me, that means Patrick Queen from the rival Ravens. And do I think they'll do that? No, but to me, that would be the one player that I would target in free agency if you're looking to make a splash and continue. And they are in good position financially after all the guys they released. They've saved a lot of real money over the next season and two. So, I expect them to make a move today. I've been told that. I don't know how big and I don't know who, but to me, that's what I would do if that was available to me.
Hey, Gerry, we appreciate the time today. I'll get you out of here on this. Any concern about the personality of Russell Wilson, how he fits in the locker room? The Steelers, I would imagine, because of how consistent they are and how longevity has been for Tomlin there, there's a certain caliber of locker room guy you got to be. And I would assume also as an organization, if they were concerned about it, they wouldn't have signed him. But people in Seattle, people in Denver, we've seen this. Russ can be interesting in a locker room setting. Any concern or questioning about that?
Yeah, I can't speak to that, and I can't speak to Russell's character because I only know what other people have said and what you read, and I haven't been around him.
Yeah.
The Steelers have a way about them. It's why they are among the more storied, more successful franchises in the National Football League. Their way is different than everybody else's, and we'll see. I've read some of that stuff, but as of right now, I will tell you he has particular friends here in Pittsburgh that probably helped make this deal happen, and so I'm not so sure that we'll see any kind of issues like we've read about. But again, I can't speak to that because I don't know the guy other than what I hear.
How's your golf game?
Well, that's actually where I am. I'm down in Florida, and I played the last 3 days, and I'm en route home because of free agency. So I'm glad. Thank you for asking. And so right now, it's fine.
Well,
putter's okay.
You're a longtime scribe, Gerry. We know you cover golf as well as the Pittsburgh Steelers. So every time we get you on, we have to ask you how the golf game is. What was your low round?
Well, I never like to say because I don't want people to know if I'm a good player or not and think I'm spending too much time playing golf. But I will tell you, in my younger day, I was a competitive player. So
protect the handicap.
My game hovers around at least more than respectability.
Okay, there we go. Gerry Dulac, the best. Pittsburgh Post Gazette, covering the Steelers for a long time over there. A good friend of the show in Pittsburgh, traveling back home after a golf trip. Gerry, thanks for hopping on with us this morning, giving us some info and your thoughts on Russell Wilson signing in Pittsburgh. And we look forward to catching up with you down the road.
All right, boys. Anytime. I enjoy chatting with you.
All right, there we go. Our good friend Gerry Dulac, Pittsburgh Post Gazette, on his way home from a Florida trip for golfing. And he seems Pittsburgh vetted it enough to the point where they think Russ can come in there, compete, maybe take the starting gig and maybe elevate them higher than what they were last year, which I believe was a 7 seed in the playoffs and losing to Buffalo in round 1.
It might be the biggest thing about it, outside of just can he play, is what's he going to be like in that locker room. And Gerry will
pick up on that.
He's going to pick up on
quickly,
that. So make sure you'll forget and I'll forget. But next time you talk to him, I want to know what his theory, what he feels it's going as from a personality standpoint, because it might be the one thing we're overlooking of all of it, because it's like, oh, the Steelers, it's stable environment, good culture, great ownership. This is a no-brainer. Of course he'll be fine. But will he be fine?
7 years.
Especially if he doesn't start.
Yeah, and Pittsburgh has a lot of cachet.
Mm-hmm.
The fan base is spoiled for sure, but also 7 years of not winning a playoff game for a team with that kind of history. That's not a place you want to be in, and just assuming you're just going to be the same thing, maybe a little improved. I don't know. We'll have to see how it works out, but Pittsburgh Steelers have signed Russell Wilson.